Hello.
Ahora ahí corté toda la interpretación.
Hola, ¿me pueden oír?
Sí,
Sí.
perfecto.
Perfecto.
Ok.
So, gracias, bienvenida. Este es el equipo de facilitadores. We have Sos, Cindy, and Splendor from Africa, Sasa from Asia, Aos, Emi, Anto, and me, and Cesar from Latam. And Marita will be the interpreter today.
Hello.
Hi.
So, good luck. We're going to open now. Anto?
Thank you.
Yes, we can start our meeting. Vamos a empezar a emitir y voy compartiendo.
I have a question. Where do I find the interpretation? Oh, I got it. I got a slide. Thank you.
Bienvenidos, bienvenidos.
Welcome to this meeting. There are more people joining this third innovation webinar. Congratulations. The interpreter, Marita Propato, will be helping us today. So you can choose your language in the interpretation icon, and you can also turn off original audio. I will continue in Spanish. Let me share with you the agenda for today. Okay, we are recording the session. Thank you, Emi. And let me share with you the agenda for today. We will have some icebreaker at the beginning to go back to our purpose in the program. Then we will share the next steps. And we have a special guest, Lucette James, and we will have a conversation with her so that we can have some inspiration about change networks and exchanging and team building. And then we will talk about the next steps. Another speaker, Enrique Bravo Escobar, from the National Endowment for Democracy, was not able to join us because of some health issues. So we will take advantage of our time with Lucette to take this opportunity to go deeper in the conversation with her, given that the other speaker was not able to join us. Now we will have a connection exercise. I'm going to share a story with you. I'm going to tell a story. I would like you to think about and reflect upon collaboration in our teams, so that you have this collaboration idea in mind. The story is about an assembly in the carpentry shop. It is said that in the carpentry shop there was once a strange assembly. It was a meeting of tools to settle their differences. A hammer was the president, but the assembly notified it that it had to resign. Why? Because it was too noisy, and besides, it spent its time hitting. The hammer accepted its guilt, but asked that the screw should also be rejected because a lot of turns were required for it to be of any use. Faced with the attack, the screw also accepted to be rejected, but asked for the expulsion of the sandpaper because it made it appear that it was very rough in treatment and always had friction with the rest of the tools. The sandpaper agreed on the condition that the meter was also left out and expelled because It always exercised the same measure. At that moment, the carpenter entered, put on his apron, and began his work. He used the hammer, sandpaper, the measuring tape, and the screw. Eventually, the initial rough wood became a fine piece of furniture. The assembly afterwards resumed its discussion. It was then the saw that took the floor and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it has been shown that we have defects, but the carpenter works with our qualities. That's what makes us valuable. So let's not think about our weak points anymore, and let's concentrate on the usefulness of our good points or advantages." The assembly then came to the conclusion that the hammer was strong, the screw joint and gave strength, the sandpaper was special for refining and filing the rough edges, and they observed that the tape was precise and exact. They felt then as a team capable of producing quality furniture. They were proud of their strengths and of working together. This is a story I wanted to share with you. Do you have any thoughts? Are there any ideas you would like to share on the chat? Okay, we are getting some greetings, and Hector has raised his hand. Hector, go ahead. Even though we could say that different team members or different stakeholders are important for each of the projects, each of us is also an important part of this whole fabric. And we couldn't work one without the other one. We need the others, and each of them contributing their own skills. Thank you, Hector. The importance of collective work. That's something that is mentioned on the chat. Do you have any other thoughts, perhaps in connection with the work in your teams or working with people that have a different mindset or that have different thoughts? I also feel, this is from the chat, I also feel that these tools come from different factories and different team members come from different contexts. Thank you, Sebastian, for that idea. Yes, we bring our own backgrounds and contexts and we contribute our own perspectives. And when we exchange with others, we can also see this diversity. It is very important to be able to listen to others, to be willing to listen. And Charles also says talent and value added to the team, valuing others and looking at their contributions and not their defects. Jackie says our expertise is different, but when we build synergy, we create a unique solution. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. So you can activate your mic or write your thoughts on the chat. Another important idea is recognizing each stakeholder and teamwork. It's great to have this brainstorming because we have a common mission: team building, teamwork, and collaboration. Another idea on the chat, collaboration was very effective as each tool did its work perfectly. Okay, if there are any more ideas, you can post them on the chat. And this is a simple story, but it is an illustration of how we can have that teamwork mindset. I don't know how to raise my hand, but I wanted to say that the different groups have ways of interaction with rivalry, competition, conflicts, denying others, or disregarding others. this is like a common pattern in society, but we need to find common goals and common benefits. And that way we can be on the same page and align our efforts, recognize what everyone contributes to have synergy and teamwork. That's great. Thank you. And there's another comment. It is important to work with each person's potential. Okay. So this was just a story that sets the scene for our mission 3. And we'll talk about this. Hello, everyone. It's great to meet again in this session where we can exchange experiences and hear new voices. We are happy to welcome Lucette. She has many years of experience regarding collaboration. In the first place, I would like to express my congratulations. I would like to commend you for the work you have done. You have made progress. We have set up a team, a design team, some space where the different voices can come together with different perspectives and experiences so that we can start working with a common goal, as some of you have said. And you have also started interacting on that complex issue you would like to address and transform in your city. You have gone through the mission of alignment, where the different tools to understand the problem and the system map allows you to also identify key points or leverage points where you can make an intervention in order to start a change in that system you would like to modify. You are at the point of territory validation. I know that many of you are doing this territory validation or mapping. Don't worry if you are a little bit behind. We know that each team has its own requirements time-wise, and you have your own tools. This process should be useful to you. As we heard in the other webinar with the Mexico team, they built a structure so that 4 years later, they had everything they needed to build a solution. So take your time to explore, to do your validation on site or in the field, and also take your time to hear from others, to learn from them how they are addressing the problem. Now it's mission 3, and it is time to take a break. The diamond or the circle has come, the process has come full circle, and we finish the definition of the problem and we start the change theory in the system definition. In the first place, we have the construction at the system level. The change theory at the system level is the first step. Then we have the inspiration panels, where you will be able to share what you have learned. You will receive feedback from experts to strengthen the work you have been doing. And the third step, which is a key turning point, as Beltran was saying, this is a moment where you get together to achieve a common goal, not just with the design team, but also with all stakeholders you have identified who are fulfilling their part in the system. These are the networks of change. We want to get the commitment of the different voices and start exchanging. So this is the time for a collective understanding and for collective systemic innovation, to hear all the voices in a common space. principles or horizontal principles of this program is participatory design or engaging design. And we need these spaces to hear all the voices. And that is why it is important to have that network of change or change network around this mission. On Tuesday, we will share more information about the tools. Your facilitators will be supporting you so that you know how to facilitate those spaces and build them. But this is an enriching experience for the teams. And now I will turn it over to Cindy, because the goal today is to talk about collaboration and how these spaces help us build solutions that are more sustainable over time so that we can understand the problem you want to work with. Now, Cindy, we will have an inspirational conversation. The conversation will be in English, or the speaker will speak in English, and we will have interpretation to Spanish. So, Cindy, you can start.
Right. Hello. Can I be?
Okay, for those who were
Así que ahí pueden encontrarlo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla, donde dice interpretación. Ahí eligen español y mutean el audio original. Y cualquier duda, ahí estamos en el chat ayudándolos. Buenísimo.
Hello, can I be heard? All right. If you're listening in Spanish, sorry, can I be heard? Please confirm. Yes.
Se escucha bien.
Se escucha perfecto.
Se
Sí,
escucha bien.
just
Se
the
escucha
ones
bien en
who are in
español.
the English, the ones who are in the English room, I think they maybe go to the original audio. If not, Cindy will need to go to the English one.
Huh? Sorry, Nick. We're speaking in
start,
English, right?
Maybe.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, Cindy, I can hear you. You can speak
Sí
in
la
English.
escuchamos perfectamente.
Everyone, you
Yes,
can
we
go
can
ahead.
hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you've managed to switch to the interpretation language for the Spanish speakers. And if you're having any challenge with that, please let us know on the chat box. We have a great team of facilitators that are going to assist you with that. Right, so we're excited to dive into our conversation today that's about co-creation and participatory design, what it takes, what challenges arise, and what it means for engagement at the local level. And I'm honored to introduce our brilliant speaker who will be sharing her experiences and insights with us. Her name is Luzette James from Co-Creative. She's a global leader in human development and systemic transformation. She integrates holistic science, regenerative leadership, and learning design to guide networks and organizations through deep change. Her approach is rooted in care, presence, and the belief that collective well-being is possible when we reimagine how we lead and collaborate. Luzette, thank you very much for being here with us. We're truly honored to have such an experienced and passionate voice in the room, and we're excited to learn from your journey, your insights, and the wisdom that you've been able to gather along the way. I hope that you're able to hear me, Luzette.
Yes.
Welcome.
I can hear you very well.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here and for inviting me. I can only share my own experience, so I don't know if there's any brilliance there, just a lot of failing and a lot of mistakes and a lot of just learnings. That's what I can share. Um,
Beautiful. I think that
um,
we're going to learn so much from that. All right. So we'd also love to hear from you guys. So feel free to share your thoughts, your reflections, or questions on the chat box. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll try to bring in as many of your contributions as we can throughout the session. Remember, we have quite a bit of time with Luzette, so feel free to share as many questions and thoughts as you can on the chat box as we go on. Right, so we'll get started with our conversation, Luzette. And we'll get on to our first question. Why do you think co-creation spaces are essential for designing impactful solutions?
Yeah, I mean, before I answer the question, I just want to say that co-creative, we work with people who don't know each other, sometimes do know each other but don't like each other, to really align around shared intent, and in principle to create systems change or solve systemic challenges, and ultimately to create better futures together, for our well-being. And we do that through working in different industries. So from food, energy, health, education, finance, any sector really, to in a way that we leverage the power of diversity, the power of difference, the power of shared intent. And we create multi-stakeholder collaborations, networks, collectives that are interested in creating that particular impact or change that they want to see. We also support leaders in doing that. And so just wanted to locate you in the space that we work, so you know where my comments are coming from and where the lenses that give me some focus and sometimes biases are coming from. In terms of the question, I would love to, if it is possible for you to share the slide. I don't know which deck you have, but slide 8 maybe, one that looks into 5 levels of engagement. It's not there. Okay, would it be possible that for me to share my own screen? Thank you. I did add this earlier today, so that might be why. To answer the question, I first really need to share this slide. And we call it levels of engagement. And it's when we're looking at collaborating, the importance for us to be very much in integrity with our values, and ensure that all of those that we are working with, collaborating with, and hoping to co-create with are sharing those values. And so, for example, here in level 1, when we're working with somebody or when we are trying to collaborate, if we are in a space where we only inform the other about the things I'm saying, we need to understand that that happens in like just one-way communication, and that's not collaboration and it's not co-creation. If we are in a group and I take the leadership, for example, and I'm only leading and letting other people know, that's not co-creation. We need, and if that's how we are creating documents, for example, then we need to shift the way that we are doing so, because then people who are there with the intention of co-creation and are only informed are going to be disappointed or feeling excluded of what we're creating. There's also another level of working that includes consulting. So sometimes the consulting happens only to improve something. And so if we are in a group and I have an idea and I only consult the people around me, that also will generate the sense that people aren't really co-creating. It's more just, they will just ask things. Sometimes it could even feel like a little bit of extraction of information if you are not in agreement and have not contracted that what you are doing is consulting. So what is important here to say is that every level that I'm naming here is important. It's not bad or wrong. It's just different, and it's needed at different times with different stakeholders, right? And so when we go to level 3 here and we are involving others, that usually happens to evolve something that we are doing. Sometimes it could require mediation or negotiation, but it still is not co-creation. It's just I'm only involving somebody for a particular something that then will give me some input, right? Level 4 and 5 in levels of engagement are more the ones that we're looking at when we're talking about first collaboration and then second co-creation. When we are collaborating, we can be in level 4 and have spaces to invent together, to collaborate, to like based on our interest, negotiate at something that could happen. Collaborations can happen bilaterally, multilaterally, one-on-one, right? Like it has several shapes. Now, when we get to the level of co-creation, we go into transforming. For us, we look to transform systems. That's the impact. For you locally, you're looking to transform some of the systems that you're working with to create healthy systems. Many systems are creating outcomes or results that aren't good for many people. So we always have to be evolving these systems, because even if we design the perfect system right now, with time and with the effects of some of those results, we're going to need to change those systems. The systems always need to evolve depending on the needs and wants of the people, of the communities, of what's happening globally as well, right? So everything is interconnected. So here to say, level 5 here, co-creation, is where our hypothesis as co-creative, is where we need to stay and be to create systems change. For us to do that, we need to ensure that everyone has a voice, that everyone has the same kind of like vote in decision making and all of that, rather than just being, for example, informed, consult, or involved only, right? That's really important. Let me stop here for a moment. I cannot see there are any questions, but I'm gonna stop just to check if there's any question for now.
Thank you, Luzette. I think I can also chip in as you continue to speak. That sets a really great foundation for conversation today. Being able to understand the different levels of engagement in systems change and when to use each level with the different stakeholders, I think that is a really important perspective that you've shared with us. And I hope that, guys, you're taking notes as much as I am. So much to learn from Luzette today. Right, so I think we can move to the next point. We can shift to some of the realities on the ground. What happens when co-creation gets challenging? So, for example, could you share a time when you faced challenges during a co-creation process and how you navigated them, Lizette?
Yeah, I think that co-creation, one more thing. One important thing to say around both collaboration and co-creation is that it's not easy. And first, second, we don't always have to do everything in collaboration or co-creation. We really have to have discernment as to when we do this, because in the 60 plus multi-stakeholder collaborations that we've done through the years, many of them are multi-year, multi-generational. It needs, budget for all of that. So it really requires a huge commitment from the people who are doing it. And most of the time are people leading these networks are people who are highly impacted by those systems that need to evolve or be transformed. So challenges are everywhere when we are collaborating and co-creating, because it's not easy to do. And again, we don't have to do it always. Now, when we decide to go for it, because we know that we're going to create that system change, we know it's possible, we have, a shared intent with the group of people that we're working with, we know that it's diverse enough that it reflects the diversity of the system that we're changing. We know that we're addressing a complex issue, and that because we have diversity, we can see the different points of that system. And we know that it requires action that is kind of like multifaceted and that addresses different parts of the problem. When that's happening, then we will observe some challenges. First, because we have diversity, we will have different stakeholders bringing competing priorities, right? That's first. What happens when that happens? So when there are competing priorities and sometimes they become tensions, we call those creative opportunities. And we bring them and name them directly to the network or to the, let's say, the design team or the core team that we start working with. So we can be aware of it, name that, and look for a balance in those tensions. Like, for example, when we have people that have more individual interest on the table, and there are others that have more collective interest. If we have too much individualism, we're going to get kind of like the negatives, the downsides of that individualism. And then we're going to have to bring a little bit more of the collective now to have some balance. If we only do collective, we're going to miss a lot of individuation and distinguishing and difference that is also important to have in our systems. So we want both. So we start to use the muscle of both and sometimes we have to say or. It's not that we always have to say both and. For some things, like, I have a nose and my nose is different from my ear. This is an or, right? But when we're talking about, for example, going broad and going deep, we need both in our systems change. When we're talking about taking action now, but also deepening our learning, we need both. When we are talking about, for example, short-term gains and long-term priorities, this is a big tensions that we face. And I'll go into more detail with this last tension, because another common challenge is the power dynamics that affect participation. And so, for example, common manifestations of power dynamics. Some voices dominating conversations while others remain silent. And so, or certain stakeholders have more influence over decisions. I've seen this mainly with, like, for example, some funders or philanthropy, because they have the money, they tend to have more influence. Not always, but in some cases. We also have the historical power imbalances that affect trust and participation. And we also have, like, institutional authority that create, implicit pressure. And so things that we can do when that shows up, we need to name power dynamics explicitly from the start, rather than pretend that they don't exist. We need to acknowledge them, discuss how the group wants to work with them. When we work with funders or philanthropists that are, kind of like putting the money and all of that, we name that, and we work with funders to say, look, what you say sounds like 10 times in the room versus what somebody else might say. So you really need to hold a little bit, listen first, right? So we coach them to really kind of like occupy a space that creates equity for others. We also create structured opportunities for equal voice. So, for example, we have something called round robin sharing. So somebody starts, for example, an idea, and everyone else has their turn to edit the whatever document or ideas that are being created. We organize small group discussions. So, for example, when we are in our meetings, we start with pairs, and then we go up and work in fours, and then sometimes we even work in eights, just so we start small, and then we come back to the individual person, so the introverts in the room can connect to their own ideas, and so on. We also create anonymous voting when something really needs it. When we are facilitating, as facilitators, we're also always paying attention to who speaks first and most often. And we sometimes ask those with more positional power to speak a little bit less or last. And we, for example, sometimes have engagement principles in our meetings where we say, If you have to step up and speak when you don't usually speak, and we ask you to step back when you actually know that you speak a lot. We also create time for quieter voices. So we said only people who have not spoken yet can speak now. Things like that to ensure that there is equality in that sharing. There is another big thing here, and it's called resistance to new ways of working. Because of course we come here, like we started our meeting reading a tale, which was lovely, but not all groups are open to it. So sometimes we face skepticism about the new approaches, attachment to old ways of working, or fear of losing control or influence. And there is also a concern about the investment, the time that is invested in meetings. So we try to work with resistance as information rather than opposition. So usually when there is resistance, there is wisdom that needs our attention, because what we ask is what is behind the resistance? What is the real motivation? What are they trying to solve for? What is their interest, right, in bringing this resistance up? And of course, so when we see that, then we create a space for concerns to be voiced. So for example, we have regular check-ins, we have anonymous feedback channels, or one-on-one conversations. And then sometimes we just start in our meetings or conversations, or sometimes we have in-person 2 or 3 day gatherings. We do celebrate small wins and also build small wins to build confidence. So we do quick prototype testing with people of some ideas. We divide them in groups. We do short-term experiments to see, what can happen, share the learnings from that, and of course, celebrate the early successes. I have few more, but I want to just check if first I'm speaking too fast, and second, if there are any questions as to what I have said so far, because I have one more thing that I think is a challenge I want to talk about.
All right. Please feel free to share on the chat any questions that you have, any comments. Also, in case you find our speaker to be too fast in the speech, please let us know. She's able to speak slower in case someone is missing out on something. All right.
All right. Okay. So then I'll jump into the other challenge, that the pressure and time tensions. And so sometimes we have the urgency to show results, particularly when we are, for example, answering to a grant for a funder, a 6-month or a 1-year grant that we need to show results. And that versus the need for relationship building in our networks. Another common challenge is the pressure from funders and leadership for just quick impact. And we have also a different pace preferences among stakeholders. So sometimes we have people who really want to jump into action, and there are some others who really want to reflect a little bit more before we take any action. And there are others that just want to learn first. And have almost okay, let's have our learning perfect and then we do something. And so that difference in pace, we need to learn how to bridge. And sometimes, actually most of the time, we have limited time availability from participants. So people never have time to do a lot of things. And so some of the things we do to address this is we design processes that try to balance all these needs I named. So we try to create plans that include quick wins and longer term work. So we put, for example, okay, what are the critical shifts that we need to do to get to the systems change we want to see, or the impact we want to achieve? And within those critical shifts, we're going to have some quick wins, like things that we're going to do within the next 6 months. And then we're also going to have the long-term work, which ultimately is going to be reflected in the change of that system we're working with. We also include a series of agendas in our meetings. So we alternate between an agenda that has a lot of action into the making. We have an agenda that has reflection with learning. We have an agenda that has connection as well. And we have an agenda that has alignment. So we call that calm. And the alignment is really important because who wants to go to a meeting, for example, where we only connect? That's nice. But if you're there to get something done and you only connect, then you're going to feel that you are wasting your time. So we really need to try to balance this time in all these agendas. We also have to be very transparent about time trade-offs. So for example, we have to say what is gained and what is lost if we go into like a different pacing, or if we focus today on reflection and we're not focusing on action, right? And we also make explicit our choices about where we're investing our time, so people don't feel like they're wasting it. That's really important. And obviously regular preview of progress and priorities. I think that that's the all the challenges I really wanted to highlight with some strategies, because sometimes, because one of these, we've seen networks not work. I actually had one this week and I feel very sad about it. So yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Lizette. I can also see that on the chat we have Charles saying, thank you for sharing. I love the idea of first giving an opportunity to people who may not speak. If some talkative person starts, I think it can be a way to ensure we get unique contributions. Absolutely, Charles. Please, the rest, feel free to use the chat box for any comments. As you can see, we're getting very relatable examples in facilitation of groups with different dynamics. And this is such a great reminder that challenges are normal and we should not be afraid of them. And that the diversity in every team or in every network causes competing priority, which eventually causes tension. And we need to see that as a creative opportunity. Thank you so much, Lizette. And now we're going to
Cindy,
talk.
can I add something more to what Charles said that
Yes.
is quite useful? Sometimes it's difficult, and to be honest, I have years of experience facilitating, and sometimes I cannot even do it because it depends on how the situation is. But ideally, when, for example, somebody really speaks a lot and they're particularly connected to a value or a thing, right? Again, I let me just use individualism and collectivism just now. It's sometimes you might have to say, well, I hear your point. You're talking about this and that you really care about it. I wonder what others think about it. So as facilitator, you don't have to manage that. You start including other voices.
Yeah.
And or if no one wants to speak it, you can also say, oh, I wonder what would we be missing if we don't include collectivism, right? So you bring the polarity, the other tension, because usually in collaborations and in life, values come in pairs. It's not just one. Sometimes when we say, let's move from individualism to collectivism, we need both. It's just that we have, at least I live here in the United States, we have way too much dominance on the individualism. And that's why the minorities, the collectives, like are suffering so much. But if we only had collectivism, then what happens with the beauty of the individual, our individual gifts, our sense of understanding the world with diversity, right? We need both. And that's as facilitators and in creating our own solutions, we really need to learn how to bring all these multiple perspectives that will enrich our work. That's it, Cindy, I'm done.
All right, thank you. Really great reflections. Okay, so now we'll talk a bit about the practical side of how we create these spaces and what are some of the tools or practices that you recommend for creating effective and safe co-creation spaces.
Yeah, let me, I want to share my screen again.
Yeah.
Because I want to show a few ones, and my slides are to be shared. Everything that Co-Creative has is open source. We care about people having access to this and using it. So first, I want to talk a little bit as to how we understand collaboration, right? And on the right-hand side here, This is the type of collaboration that we work to foster. All right. Collaboration, as usual, is on the left, but in the interest of time, I'll work more on the right-hand side. We believe that having a powerful goal that is shared is really important. Without shared intent, it's really hard to start something, because then you need to invest a lot of time having that shared intent to have that alignment that will kind of like get you through the challenges. And of course, that shared intent, that goal will evolve with time. So we also need to be highly selective in choosing our participants. And this may sound a little bit counterintuitive because you're like, oh, what do you mean? Aren't we inclusive? And I'm going to say exactly so. Because we're inclusive, we need to be selective. Why? Because when I make an open invitation and I just invite whoever wants to come, first, I don't know their level of commitment. Second, I'm only going to attract the people that are like-minded and my friends to join me. But the people who are in other parts of the system that I am not familiar with, that might be even more impacted by that system, that might not even be the ones invited to the table ever to talk about that system, those are the ones I need to make an effort to invite. So if I, for example, hold a meeting and I invite, the nonprofit leaders and the government leaders, and they are actually paid to, because it's part of their work to come to these meetings. But then this system is affecting a member in the community. And I don't invite that member of the community, but sometimes I can invite the member of the community, but she's not being paid for that. She has to pay to come to join us, and maybe doesn't have childcare. So where does the child go, right? So when I'm selective, when I'm creating those meetings and I'm inviting the members of the community that are impacted by those systems, I have to cover their needs. That's the selection that we're talking about. So we can create more equity, a space for people to participate in these conversations. We need to get the whole system in the room. It connects to what I already said, all parts of the system, not only the funders or the nonprofit that is working on it. No, everyone. We need to work in real time with everyone in the room, and leverage political and cultural tensions. Hopefully, we need to build empathy and insights about what people are really experiencing. So we do a lot of interviews with the people in the systems. Finally, we build collective views from the whole system together. We make sense of the system together so we can enrich our shared intention, and we prototype our ideas as soon as possible. I have more slides, but I realize we have 6 more minutes left, and I want to check with Cindy if if I need to answer something else or somebody needs to take the microphone.
Right. Thank you. I can see Obi saying that I'm so happy for this presentation. We have some people who do not contribute, but then they don't accept other people's opinion indeed. So we'll quickly move to the final question so that we can get to hear as much as we can from you, Luzette. And then we'll take some questions if we have any that will be on the chat. Right. So for our last question, what have you found to be essential for building trust at the beginning of a co-creation process?
Yeah, so we first start with one-on-one conversations before we go into group meetings, just to get to know one another and ensure that there is a little bit of or alignment around that initial goal that we start with. We when we start with collaborations, we don't go there without a goal. Like usually 1 or 2 people have a goal, like then we go into fours, right? And like we start expanding the circle. But there's usually kind of like a little bit of alignment there. um, when we are speaking, we're very honest and explicit about power dynamics. We let people name what are the power dynamics that they are seeing, what they would need to feel, that those dynamics are addressed. And then we have to create a plan on how to address them and agree on that. We create clear agreements on how we will work together. Commitments, right? Oh, well, maybe there is confidentiality, or maybe there is that, when there is something bothering us, we have to name it and solve it. Maybe we have a process where we clear disagreements, for example. and so on. We also ensure at the very beginning that if we say something, we follow through on those small commitments. So, for example, we have a design meeting in a week, and we said by tomorrow you will receive the agenda, the time, whatever. We send it by tomorrow. So we start role modeling reliability from the get-go. It's really important to build trust. And we, of course, make the space for people to share their hopes and concerns. Like when we start the meeting, sometimes we say, let's go into a round, share how you feel, or if you have any fear or any concern, and how could we address it? And we also focus a lot on building relationships before we jump into solutions. Because, okay, so systems are made of people, right? And everything is made of the relationships between those people, with ourselves, with others, with our planet, in the context that we live in. So the relational bit, I couldn't emphasize more how important it is. um, Trust building isn't just a warm-up activity, it's fundamental to the success of any co-creation, because what we want in our relationships is to be able to embrace the full humanity of the others that we're working with, including ours.
Right. Thank you for that reminder that when we're dealing with people, it's very important to be relational. And in case you're wondering why you're having a challenge with your team, maybe you have some members who are not appearing so committed. Perhaps you skipped that step of commitment or agreement on how you're going to work together. And it would be good to always go back as we continue to learn from these spaces. Feel free to go back and review how you have gotten to this point, mission 2, and you can always adjust your process. So in case you skipped that part of how can your team work together as you co-create your solution, you can always go back and do that. I think I have experienced the same challenges with some of my teams, where some people are committed but then others are not. Right, so that was the last question that we had. And before we close off our discussion, I'd like to open the floor to any reflections, any questions from our participants. And again, a reminder, feel free to use the chat and also raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you. I can see Jesse says, true trust is mutual and reciprocal. When people don't feel seen or heard by you, they won't trust and open. Most people are not shy when it comes to sharing problems that affect them. They just don't feel seen and heard enough to trust you enough with their problem. Without trust, collaboration and improvement will be difficult. Thank you so much, Jesse, for sharing that with us. Hector, I think you had raised your hand even before. We can take your question, Hector. Hector, if you're in a position to speak. In case you're speaking.
It's correct.
Yes, now we can hear
In
you.
my case, the challenge is intergenerational. We are looking for a focus on a childhood. However, invalidation is part of a larger strategy to raise awareness about river care and different uses of water, urban, rural, agricultural, and industrial. My question is, also, we are at early stage in this challenge. It's right to focus on target group and childhood. Uh, Given that systemic change is complex to address from the elites in, in, en otros abordajes, and I don't know how to say, but this is my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hector. I don't know if Luzette, you were able to get that. Luzette?
I think I did. I think you're asking about how to address the challenge that happens in intergenerational groups where people have different approaches. I hope that I understood that correctly. And it's very similar to what I've been saying. And you have to try things, try and error, because prototyping smaller things with particular groups, you have to, from my perspective, it would be good to identify what is it that is motivating the different members of the the network that are there, depend by, you know, generations or whatever. But then once you have the shared interest, you can organize around that and see, kind of like start matching the interest from the young with the older, for example. You can use polarities. We have, I didn't share today, but there is a polarity framework where you can bring the values as I was naming. So somebody from a particular age can be, you know, focus on one particular value, while somebody younger might prefer another particular value. But if you name the two of them and you see how they complement each other and balance those, that would be great. I mean, Nicole and Antonella, maybe we could have a session on polarities at some point, because it's just so beautiful to show the value of difference.
Right. Thank you so much, Luzette and Hector, for your question. Swati, I can see your hand is raised. Please feel free to share your question, and that's going to be the last question we'll take. If anyone else has an additional question, please use the chat and we'll be able to share with our speaker, and we'll share back any responses she shares with us. Yes, Swati?
Yeah, I just value the statement that you shared, that giving the honest, what should I say, honest comment. So in our area in Kolkata, we are working with corporates, working with government, working with community and other organizations. So each and every stakeholders are coming with a different value system, different ethos and different space. So they are all are coming from a different background. So the challenge is picking up the challenges, solving the challenge, and taking the project in a same space where we also, as a organization, we also have some commitment to the donor. We'll have to show the result in a particular certain period of time. So this is one of the challenge, bringing all the stakeholder in the pace of our project time frame. That is a challenge that I face, but I respect the word that if you are honest in saying your problem, stating your problem, so probably collaboration is happening. But yes, we are facing the challenges trying to solve it. But if there are some tool which can easily solve that, it will be wonderful to learn.
Yes, and maybe that also, the same tool can help the other person I just answered for. So we have two things that we use. Trying to get people aligned around that shared intent and that shared strategy. So we have what we call critical shifts. So together, everyone may have a different approach, right? But if we at least agree on the shifts that need to happen from today into the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know how long, right? And we say, we are right now, teachers are working way too hard right now. And then in the future, we want teachers and parents to collaborate to provide excellent education. I'm just giving you two easy examples, right? And then you have other critical shifts that the group agrees on. Then you can say, then you start having some alignment. At least we're seeing the same shifts we want to see in the future. A lot of us have that in common, right? But then the second tool we have is that we have 10 critical shifts. Now, how do we choose? We have something that is focus and frame. So we say, well, for now, we're going to focus on a couple of these for the short-term win, let's say for the next year. In the frame, we'll have the rest of the critical shifts, and we take them when we get there. So just to summarize, so while people may come with different approaches from different things, our work as facilitators will be to create the space, to create making sense of what is needed. Critical shifts is one tool. Understanding the landscape. So for example, sometimes we also do interviews together. So they start hearing the same things and we start understanding the same things that are happening in that system. And so in that way, we start creating commonality, sharing intention, sharing a strategy. And I can share those tools. You can email them later. I just don't have them available right now.
Thank you so much. Lizette, and thank you, Swati, also for your question. I can see also on the chat people saying beautiful presentation. It is on point and we're learning, and we have a final question from Brian, which we're going to share with our speaker, and then we'll get to share the response we get from her later. So thank you so much, Luzette, for your generous insights, and thank you all for being fully present in this space. Now we'll quickly talk about what is coming next. And the first thing that we are anticipating is your collective workshop for Mission 3. And that's going to be on the 1st of July. So that is next week on Tuesday. Be on the lookout for that. Also, your facilitators will communicate the same with you in case of any changes. And then we also have a tool delivery deadline on the July 21st. That's for Mission 3 tools. The deadline will be on 21st of July. Remember also, sorry, at the end of this month, you need to also submit your tools for Mission 2. And the last thing that we are looking forward to is the roundtables, which will be on the July 28th all the way to August 2nd. And you'll get to learn more about what roundtables are and also how to prepare for them. Right, so we'll send you these dates and materials as a follow-up, but what matters most is you're not doing this alone. There's a whole community, a whole network moving forward together. So thank you guys for being here. It was really great seeing you all today, for your engagement, for all the thoughts that have been shared on the chat. We're really grateful that we're able to do this. We're looking forward to our next session that's going to be in the coming month. So let's all see each other then. Thank you so much, Luzette. Thank you so much to the Ayni team. And we'll see each other when we see each other in our next webinar.
Thank you all. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.